Hello everybody and welcome back to the Chariot series, and here I am with the Black Knight, the Black Knight 12, and this is pretty much the only version of that was really viable out of, again, something of a list that looks quite inexhaustible. It turns out to be rather difficult. Outside of one of the variants where the PPC is switched for a large laser, typical Mareks, there really isn't much else. The rest of them either carry hatchets, or they have shields, or they have Guardian ECM suites, or they use plasma rifles, all things that aren't in MWO, as much as I wish we did have Black Knights running around with shields and hatchets, or short swords, and just clobbering the shit out of each other. It just sadly isn't going to happen. And you may wonder at the end of this video, why didn't I have the Glorious Domination music? Well, the reason I didn't have the Glorious Domination music, because this was fish in a barrel, this was a brutal fucking beatdown. And there's nothing glorious about a 12-0 victory. I know, spoilers, but here we go. So, the Black Knight 12 is pretty much the standard Black Knight with a supposedly technological overhaul. So the PPC is an ER model, but that happened on previous versions. All of the medium lasers become ER models, and it retains the two large lasers, but they don't become ER larges for some reason, probably because of heat. Suffice to say, this is a very hot model of the mech, and it was only by virtue of the fact that I was on Polar when I did the first drop in this thing that it wasn't a case that I probably didn't like melt myself, because yeah, one of the things that Black Knight is always known for has been its high energy outputs. Big popular part of a lot of Star League Defense Force builds was the idea of having mechs that could fight out in the periphery states, as the reunification war was a big deal. And one of the problems was fighting out in the Bush League, basically, and fighting a lot of guerrilla forces. You needed mechs that could stay out in the field for long periods of time that didn't require ammunition weaponry, and that's why you had things like the Crab, that's why you had command mechs like the Black Knight, and other like light units of the Star League era and the such that could stay out and hunt down these periphery forces that were causing so much trouble. Turing Concordat is a good example of one of the periphery states that just gave them a big headache. I mean, they had the advantage in pretty much every respect, but yeah, it took a long time to quell the resistance there, and it was mechs like the Black Knight and the Crab and such, the Mongoose and things like that, that really sort of put an end to those little guerrilla warfare parties that were out there. So by virtue of that, the Star League have always been very heavy, whereas you go to the Succession era, and you have quite a broad mix of ammunition-based mechs and energy-based and sorts of like missile-heavy things. So it's basically whatever you could get that would work on the field at the time. So yeah, hello Sooty. So the Black Knight has always been a very high-energy output mech. It was meant to lead lances of SLDF units, so it was a comfortable command mech because of its capability of being able to stay at range and give commands from there, and if the fighting required it, it could move its ass into the fight. I still wish they'd gone with the original. I know it's hokey, it looks like a suit of armor, but I always liked that aspect of it. A giant battle mech that looks like a set of armor come to life with a swivel-mounted, elbow-mounted PPC that could swing up and down. That was just kind of cool. I liked that. It was a pity they went with the Dark Ages era, Jihad era version of it, unfortunately, for the visuals, but it's still a good mech. If you've never tried out a Black Knight, give it a go. 75 tons, it's not a bad weight range. It's got a hell of a lot of armor as well. And, you know, it's straightforward, it's simple. You don't have to worry about, you know, making the best use of all of the hard points because it doesn't have that mix. It's basically, if you like using pulse lasers, it's great for pulse lasers. If you want to be a sniper, you can set it up with ER larges and that kind of thing. If you want to turn it into something that uses a broad array, the options are there for you, you know. It's got plenty of hard points right across the chassis from the arms to the torsos, so you don't have to worry too much about focusing, you know, protecting one side or the other. You're going to have weaponry all across the thing, so it's been a good chassis for that. It's always been very reliable, I think, in MechWarrior Online. You don't see them very often, unfortunately, as obviously the narrowing of different play styles or the meta generally pushes a lot of players into very specific chassis, and you tend to see the same kind of builds popping up a lot. And yeah, the Black Knight doesn't win any awards for originality in the sense that it's just a mech that has a shitload of energy hardpoints, that's it. But if it's a different chassis you're looking for, or one you haven't tried, the Black Knight is fun if you like playing your heavies. And 75 tons, as I said, it's pretty decent, well armoured. This match, classic Polar. It's the person who blinks first is the one who suffers, and yeah, the other team unfortunately blinked. They started to try and close at. It was too late in the game. By the time they started to maneuver and try and change position, they'd already sort of lost any kind of advantageous position they may have had. Teams started to move in. Stragglers got found. Stragglers got picked off, and it just turns into a horrible murder fest straight after. These are, in my opinion, some of the worst games to be involved in. It's not fun, it doesn't feel like you've had a fight, it just feels like what you did was clobber 12 people, and you have to win, but you don't really feel like you've won. It's not very rewarding. But I kept it because it's a decent amount of time for me to ramble on about the Black Knight, talk about the variants, and you can see some gameplay of it in action. I personally didn't do bad in it, I don't think, but yeah, 12-0, it was one of the scourges of MechWarrior Online, unfortunately, when you just get those matches, and they're just bad. It's the kind of thing that turns people off from playing the game, you know? You just don't want to see it, you don't want to be involved in it. And some people are snarky at the end in the comms, and that's another thing, that's unnecessary, you don't need to take the piss. It was already a bad enough fucking brutal beatdown that you didn't need to add on to it, did you? And that was it, that was the end of that one. Yeah, they're very unsatisfying. I prefer it when there's, you know, a few kills on each side before you get the victory, but that's that. So that was the Black Knight, and that was the heavies. All 75 tonners done for the Inner Sphere. We'll be going next week into the 85 tons for the clans. Undecided whether it's going to be the Warhawk or the Marauder 2C. We'll see. It's leaning more toward Warhawk. I haven't played them in a while, so I'll catch up with you all then. Hope you all have a good week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.